spicy. Not because you want to, but you have to. Be bold and no time to be bashful. Grab life by the horns like a natural. Be sharp, be quick, and be agile. Never ever let a competitor catch you. Stay ahead of whatever is trying to pass you. Though it's not a race, sometimes that's how you gotta operate.
Hello everybody, Samuel Ray here. Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Boot Up, where I sit down with my breakfast and coffee and just ramble on a little bit about whatever's on my mind. Generally one topic though. Before I wanted to start what I was thinking about recently, I wanted to make a quick addendum, add on regarding my last episode, which was about the YouTube policy changes. So the quick and simple of it is that YouTube is tightening up their restrictions around profanity, sexually explicit content, graphic violent imagery, and so on, where it relates to video footage, the speech of the person making the video, or even source videos in the upload, and then games even. Now me as a strictly clean creator, because I don't even use profanity, innuendo, or anything of that sort in my day-to-day life, you're not gonna get that in my content. Just simple as that. And then the games that I play generally don't feature a lot of that, kind of stuff in it as well. Maybe the occasional light swear from a T-rated game, stuff like that. But, I do what I can to keep it as clean as possible. Just keep it on brand for me. And I'll continue doing so going forward. But I myself am never going to use profanity or innuendo. That's just not in my personality. So these kind of policies really don't affect me much. The quick addendum I wanted to add to that was it may even benefit me, these new policies. Because the thing is, the way the YouTube algorithm works is that it suggests your content in other content that is similar, or at least based around a similar thing. So like, for example, recently I've been uploading a lot of Sonic Frontiers videos, my entire playthrough, chopped up into more digestible portions. And that's going to be coming to a conclusion relatively soon. I'm almost done with the final portion of the game, and then going to be chopping that up. So keep an eye out for that, if you've been following, or if you want to see my reaction to it. But essentially, a lot of my Sonic Frontiers videos have been suggested on other Sonic-themed videos, whether it be Sonic Frontiers or anything else Sonic-related. So for us clean content creators, in the family-friendly or PG, or even, I guess, PG-13 kind of rated spaces, if these new policies force the people who stay to be more discerning on what they say, what they do, and what games they play on their channels, then that means more content for our stuff to be suggested in the end cards. After you finish a video, it gives you suggestions of similar type stuff. Well, if everyone's cleaning up, or everyone who remains, that is cleaning up their act a bit, cleaning up their speech, so to speak, and featuring games that are safer, then those of us who already had clean speech and were featuring safe games will have more for the algorithm to signal boost us to. So in the end, theoretically, and this is just based on my basic understanding of the algorithm, but theoretically, these new tighter policies actually could benefit those of us who are already on the cleaner end of the content creation scale. So yeah, that's just something I thought of after I was finished recording the previous one that I wanted to add at the beginning of this one. So moving on to the main topic I wanted to talk about this time though, it was something I mentioned at the end of the first Morning Boot Up episode, and that was how I've come to a recent understanding of why battle royales are fun, or so popular. And the theming around that is elements of random, RNG, random chance, random number generator, whatever you want to call it. Some call it luck, but I just call it random chance, because luck is simply just a combination of preparation, confidence, and opportunity. You know, an opportunity arises, you are prepared to take advantage of that, and you have the confidence to put that into action. That's all luck is. An opportunity arises and you can take advantage of it. So, and that actually ties directly into what makes Battle Royales so good, actually. I used to be against Battle Royales for the longest time. I think it was because I used to be on the, playing a lot of fighting games and kind of influenced a little bit by that fighting game community mindset of any element of random is bad. And then also the whole Fortnite thing, it blew up, and all the Fortnite kids who can sometimes be very annoying, made a lot of people want to avoid Fortnite. I did eventually try it, and it's actually not a bad game. I actually always preferred third-person over first-person games anyway, because I grew up on platformers, so I actually like it better than most of the first-person shooters out there. But it's not something I ever really choose to play on my own time. It's definitely more fun to play with others, with friends, But, and it is, safe. Like, it's graphical styling. It's not graphically violent. It's not bloody. It's not gory in the slightest, not even close. So, it's definitely got that all ages appeal. So I see why it blew up. I see the logic behind it, and I don't necessarily hate it. But in trying out various different battle royales, I've come to realize that they are very similar to roguelikes, another genre I've come to a recent love for. And it's because of the elements of random. So in contrast to playing, 20 plus years of fighting games, which have very little random, and then playing battle royales, I definitely see the appeal more. So random, it's really the only thing that is truly fair. There's actually a quote from The Dark Knight, from the Joker. Heath Ledger, R.I.P., but he did an amazing job as the Joker. And this quote, it actually is logically true. When he's talking to Harvey Dent, he's like, I'm an agent of chaos. You know the thing about chaos? It's fair. It makes sense, Chaos doesn't discriminate, right? Randomness does not discriminate. Therefore, it is fair. There's nothing anyone can do or be that really gives them an edge in random, that can give them a higher likelihood of having the better outcome. Therefore, it is actually fair and balanced. And then roguelikes and battle royale genres, which are essentially competitive PvP roguelikes in a way, they force you to think about things differently than something like 1v1 fighting games. In fighting games, or 1v1 skill-based games, the person who's played the longest and has obtained the most experience and has practiced their, mechanical execution of what the inputs they want to do, or has, experienced the matchup between the two characters that are picked the most, that player has an advantage, always will have an advantage. And when you're playing something that is niche like fighting games and generally has less players than almost every other genre at any given time, you end up having a situation where the skill gap occurs. And, the more niche the thing, the wider that skill gap becomes and the faster that it develops, making matchups between players of differing skill levels wildly imbalanced and unfair, and for most people, unfun. When you don't feel like you have a fighting chance at winning, then it just starts to feel pointless, And that's where the random of battle royales comes in. They take a hint from roguelikes and add elements of random. So while the map itself, the arena you're playing in may not change at random, it's not procedurally generated like in roguelikes often are. The gear you find is randomly distributed across the map. So while you can learn the map, you can learn where all the landmarks are, all the hiding places, the choke points are in corners and all that good stuff, vantage points, there's no guarantee you're going to get the best stuff. And even then, when you have a wide enough variety of gear, no one person is going to be top-level mastery proficiency at everything. So there's no guarantee you're going to get what you're good with. There's no guarantee you're going to get whatever's top tier. And even then, there's no guarantee you're going to be good, proficient or master the things that are strongest. Therefore, every player gets to feel like they have a fair chance. But random balances the experience for players of a wider variety, a wider range, I should say, of skill levels, and a wider variety of playstyles. The meta, the most efficient tactics available as it's been put, or by its more proper definition, meta gaming, or knowledge of the game outside the game. So externally shared knowledge between players of what's strongest, what's most effective, all that kind of stuff. In 1v1, solely skill-based games, there always will be a character, a strategy, a tactic, a weapon, equipment, what have you, that is better than everything else. And then once it becomes public knowledge what is best, what reason do you have to, if you want to be competitive and you want to win, which is kind of the whole point of competitive games, what reason do you really have to put yourself at a disadvantage by not playing what's best? I'm like, okay, yeah, play non-competitive game modes if the game offers those, because let's be honest, most fighting games since about 2012 do not offer much for the non-competitive players to do. And that's a big reason why that genre is so darn niche. Games like Street Fighter 6 seem to be changing that by offering a wide variety of content for people to play other than just standard competitive play, which is great, and definitely will make it more worth the $60 asking price. And that's one of the things that makes Smash Brothers such a big, success. Super Smash Brothers series, ever since the beginning, offered so many ways to play, to the point where you can customize what items appear, if there are items at all. Game modes, if you don't want to play the regular damage percent ring out, King of the Hill style, you have like coin battle and, team battles, and there's just so many different ways to play, which keeps it fresh and ensures that it's enjoyable to more than just your competitive players, which, the competitive hardcore is always the minority of any game or sport. So by introducing elements of random, it actually makes the experience more fair and more balanced for more people, which is reflected in the player numbers, right? You take solely skill-based games and compare them to any of these battle royales, and the battle royales dwarf the solely skill-based games massively, to the extent that a lot of the solely skill-based games, they're either niche or they are outright obscure. Like, look at arena Twitch shooters like Quake, right? Extremely niche. You hardly see it anywhere. You take, what is it? Fighting games, obviously. StarCraft, those kind of games. So what is it? Real-time strategy, where it's just one player versus one player, and it takes a really high level of understanding and execution to play well. Those are all extremely niche. Then you go look at battle royales, and they are just oversaturating the market because of how popular and approachable they are. Now, that said, not every battle royale is a great game. There have been many that have failed. So, you still got to, if you're developing one, don't be complacent and think it's a cash cow just because it's a battle royale. You've got to make a good game. That's just universal across the industry. But there's definitely an appeal to elements of random, And, it's why I've come to really enjoy roguelikes, because just like battle royales in the roguelikes and stuff, it's less about taking advantage of what's most effective, the top tier characters, strats, and so on. It's less about finding those, copying those, and then trying to master those to be viable. And then everything that's not is just putting yourself at a disadvantage, which, as put by Josh Strife Hayes, he put it quite well, but the meta removes player choice, because the choice becomes less of how do you want to play and do you want to be viable or do you want to be left behind. And I think that's true in most genres. So rather than giving more player choice, the meta really takes away player choice. But when you have something with elements of random, controlled random of course, because they set the parameters of the random number generator or the procedural generation or what have you, that elements of random in the game, there are parameters for that, so it's not completely random. So it's still controlled random, which keeps it from being a little too chaotic. But by introducing that little bit of random, it takes the focus less on mastering what's proven to be good and more on adaptability, understanding the game on its mechanical level, the features, the options you have available to you, and then being adaptable, making the most of what you get in order to succeed. And I think that is honestly a better expression of player skill than copying whatever the top players are doing. Get creative with what you get. I like that player creativity, that decision making, that on-the-fly adaptiveness. That's all the stuff that makes video games fun to me, is being rewarded for that kind of stuff. So I definitely have come to really like roguelikes and battle royales for that reason, and have changed my perspective to really see the merit of having a little bit of random in your games. Even if you go outside of video games, let's look at tabletop games, right? The most popular one, of course, being Dungeons and Dragons. But in most tabletop RPG systems, when you create your character, or at least in many of them, when you create a character, there's usually a system for rolling your character, right? That's usually the term. Now, I haven't played much in the way of tabletop games, so I'm going more off of knowledge that I've gleaned from others. But you roll your character is the terminology I've often heard, and it refers to when you're creating your character, you choose your class, your skills or whatnot, and then you roll the dice to see how many skill points you get, or how many skill points are applied to a certain trait or skill. So right then and there, there's an element of random in creating your character. So you may have an idea how you want to build your character, but when you create them, that element of random forces you to adapt to what you get. You don't get infinite rerolls. So it's okay, well, I didn't get quite as much dexterity as I wanted, so I may need to go in a different direction with this for the time being. That's an expression of skill and creativity that you don't get in a rigid, solely skill-based game with absolutely no random. And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes each experience unique, That way no two campaigns of a tabletop RPG are identical, and it avoids that feeling of sameness. It's just samey, it's repetitive, it's mundane and boring. It's harder to get bored with something when it's varied like that. Even if most people don't, most people get discouraged from things like fighting games because of the skill issue. Not to reference the meme skill issue, but usually it is. But the skill issue is aggravated by the game's design, not always just on the part of the new player who isn't skilled, because the games don't give you much incentive, much reason or motivation to get better, or reward your time for doing so that much. But it also just feels repetitive to most people. They're okay, these matches all feel kind of the same because I'm not getting better very fast, and I'm just getting dumpstered all the time, So tabletop RPGs, they have that random in character creation, and then whenever you need to do a check, a skill check or some sort of proficiency check in order to get something done, something important done, the game master will have you roll, and then add that to whatever skill rating, whatever trait you're adding to that for the check. So there's always that element of random, right? because that's how it is in life, right? Just because you want to do something or you want to have something doesn't mean you just get it. You know, sometimes random things happen, life comes at you fast, you know. And as that insurance company said in their slogan for quite a long time, life comes at you fast. But it does, you know. You can't get through life without having adaptability. And in these games, you know, even though you may have just the perfect circumstances to do something, you may get a horrible roll on your dice. And that random, it makes certain emergent experiences, you know, the kind of random things that create stories that stick with you for your life. That wouldn't be possible if there was no elements of random. You know, everything would be extremely calculated and guaranteed. So random is good when it's in a controlled fashion, when it comes to entertainment, games particularly. And I think the people who are extremely against random in their games have a very narrow perspective, or maybe it's born from salt, from, you know, that feeling of the random thing happening and taking away the desired outcome. And when that happens in a 1v1 game, for example, there's nowhere for that frustration to go except for internally, you know, pointed at yourself, or externally, pointed at the game or the opponent. And, you know, most people, let's just be honest, in their nature, most people don't want to take responsibility for things that are out of their control. Most people don't want to take responsibility for a lot of things, let's be honest. But when they feel like it's out of their control, that makes it easier to get frustrated and blame something else or someone else. And when you are, you know, kind of pigeonholed into a genre like the fighting game genre, which can be categorized as a lifestyle genre because it requires so much time and effort out of you to be decently proficient at, in order to stop just losing every single match you play. In order to get anything out of a fighting game, you have to sink so much time and energy into it first, before you get to start having the actual fun of it, and doing things with intention, you know, doing what you mean to do, and having that game sense and all that. And then you start getting into sunk cost fallacy, you know, on the time you've put in already. It's like, well, I've already put hundreds of hours into this, I don't want to quit now. And then no matter how frustrating or unhappy the game may make you, you're stuck with it, you know? You're kind of, what's the wrong before? There's a complex, what was the term? It's a psychological term for, when you develop a connection with your oppressor, or captor. I forget what it's called. I haven't drank enough of my coffee yet. I can't remember what it's called. So if you remember, let me know in the comments. I used to use it all the time too. Okay. I'm gonna look it up. Stockholm syndrome. There you go. So you get that Stockholm syndrome effect, you know, where you're stuck with it now. And, you know, you kind of fool yourself into thinking you love it, even if it may be more frustrating than fun most of the time. Who knows? You know, I think I kind of I broke free of that sort of effect when I kind of stopped playing fighting games for a bit and started playing other games like Monster Hunter Rise. And boy, did I get the wake-up call on just how much other game genres can be so much more rewarding and respect your time so much more, without requiring a lot out of you before it starts becoming rewarding. So, yeah. But yeah, so to wrap it up, random is not bad. There's a lot of reasons why it can be good in a controlled fashion in games, and I don't think it should be something that should just be avoided like the plague and treated as universally bad. Random can actually balance games more than ones that have absolutely no random in them. And because random chance or chaos is actually one of the very few truly fair things in this world. No bias, nothing can give you an advantage in random chance. So, yeah, and I'm definitely enjoying a lot of roguelike games, especially like roguelike platformers like Metal Unit or I guess, Dead Cells, and some battle royales, like Naraka Blade Point, which is one of the few melee combat-oriented battle royales, because I prefer melee over shooting with guns. That's just always going to be my preference, unless we're talking about like mechs. Then, you know, they usually have a good mix of both. And then, yeah, I'll be featuring more of them on my channel going forward. I'm going to try and see if I can find some people to play Naraka with, and, you know, explore a few other ones. So, that'll be some interesting stuff to get into. And, you know, finding more roguelikes and seeing if I can start featuring some of those in my, my content or my streams over on Twitch, because I do enjoy streaming games over there, but I really enjoy ones that have like audience involvement. So like roguelikes where the viewers can influence the outcome of stuff. Something like that would be really cool. So I'll keep looking into it. But yeah, random, not bad. That's basically the very simple too long didn't listen. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign off and get to the rest of my day. Hope you have a great day. Be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you enjoyed this, so you can see more of these and other content that I release. If you're listening to this in audio-only form on podcast platforms, then please drop me a like or leave a positive review or whatever you feel like. Or, you know, simply just in the comments or reviews, share your thoughts. Let me know what you think, because I like getting the perspectives of other people. You know, the whole idea behind my counterpick umbrella of content is new perspectives, right? It's not staying rigidly rooted in one narrow perspective, but to take as many perspectives as possible into consideration in order to come to more objective conclusions. Because a conclusion that's not informed is absolutely worthless. Alrighty, well, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you again very soon. Have a great one. Family Ray out.